true confession, I never used to like performing. I would get really nervous, and I still get nervous, but I like, now I, not every time, but most of the times I love it, and it's like what I love to do, but it was just something that was encouraged and like was a good way to practice, especially when I was like just learning how to write songs. It can be really challenging, and it definitely took us a little while to kind of understand that it was okay to write something that was a little bit different and that, you know, wasn't exactly the same as Whisky.
Engel today. I'm with Sam of Marian Hill.
Hi!
So were you born in Philly or?
I was. Yeah, I was born in the suburbs. I kind of just say Philly for people that aren't actually from Philly, because like used to do that, but it was actually the suburbs.
Were your parents born there as well, or?
No, my mom was born in Ohio, but she moved to Philly when she was young, and my dad grew up in Detroit.
Were they into, what do they do?
My mom actually worked for Reebok for 15 years.
Oh.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. She like worked at Reebok before. It was super cool. And now I'm like, Mom, do you have like any of those old samples left? I love those shoes. And then she worked for summer camp, and my dad works in tech.
Oh, where do you get your creative side from?
I don't know. No, I'm kidding. You know, I have like cousins in my family that are like very musical, and my parents are fans of music, but neither of them sing or play. But they were always really supportive.
But since a young age, you've already been like super attracted to music, right?
Yeah, I have been. I don't know. I started singing when I was really young, and then I think the first song I ever sang around the house was Home on the Range, which is really embarrassing, and I don't know why. But yeah, when I did a talent show in first grade, and then didn't really consider it as a career until I got to high school. Middle school, high school.
Yeah. What kind of music were they playing around the house when you were growing up?
Oh God, my dad introduced me to like Sheryl Crow, Katie Lang, I remember. I recently like did a deep dive about like all the first records that he played. The Beatles were big. And then sort of like on my own, I discovered like Ella Fitzgerald, Etta James, kind of like the great classic vocalists who inspired me later, and Nora Jones. She was a huge influence.
Were you really into hockey growing up?
Yeah, oh my God, I was super into ice hockey.
Yeah.
My family grew up going to Flyers games, so I never played. I was just always, before we die, I was just always a fan. Yeah, I think it's like one of the best sports to see live, in my opinion.
Do you remember how you found Nora Jones initially?
Yeah, actually, my parents saw her at a cafe in our neighborhood. It was called The Point, and they came back and they were like, "Hey, like we just discovered this like singer-songwriter. She was amazing. You have to check her out." And then I think literally like 6 months later, she won all of those Grammys. But yeah, it was really my parents who just kind of like, I think were invited to the concert on a whim by one of their friends. It was like super weird.
How did you get into open mic initially? Didn't you perform at like World Cafe, Milk Boy?
I did, yeah. I don't know. It's funny because I actually, true confession, I never used to like performing. I would get really nervous, and I still get nervous, but I like, now I, not every time, but most of the times I love it, and it's like what I love to do, but it was just something that was encouraged and like was a good way to practice, especially when I was like just learning how to write songs. It was just sort of like the easiest way to get experience in front of a crowd without like setting up your own show, because I didn't have enough music at the time. Oh God, I used to get so nervous. I was like a wreck. I couldn't like sleep the night before. It was horrible. But yeah, I performed at like World Cafe, Lickety Split in Philly, like all of these random places. Once in New York, The Bitter End in New York.
So you were already putting out your music by your own name? Like, were you writing stuff at like the open mics?
Yeah, but my songs were really, really bad.
Mm-hmm.
So they will hopefully, although some are unfortunately released and on the internet, but I was trying for sure.
And then you went to study like music business at NYU.
I did.
Was that like getting a degree something that you wanted to do, or did your parents kind of force you?
You know, looking back, I think at the time I like wanted to take time off and focus on music.
Yeah.
But I really I needed structure and I didn't really have a plan. So I thought music business would be my backup plan if music didn't work out. And it was cool. It was cool going to school in the city. Yeah, and then it wasn't until after college really that like an artist project kind of took off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Were you already, like, where was your career at by the point that you were studying at NYU?
It was really nowhere. I was writing songs, but again, they weren't very good, and I didn't really know like what I wanted to do. And it wasn't until I started working with Jeremy once we graduated. I don't know, I was working with different producers and like nothing really clicked. And then Jeremy came home with our first song that was Whisky.
Yeah.
And
huge.
Yeah, and then we went from there.
Was it after that song it started getting picked up by, I guess, like a lot of blogs? But were you already like sending your music out, establishing relationships, or?
Do you mean like Marian Hill stuff or like my own? No, it was really just Whisky. We wrote it and then Jeremy wanted to release it. And I actually was very hesitant to do that for various reasons. I was like afraid of it and I loved the song. We didn't really know what it was and how it sounded on it. But people picked it up pretty immediately, which was really exciting.
Yeah.
And really cool. And kind of like led us to want to be in a band and to keep trying.
After you graduated, were you working other jobs, or like how are you sustaining?
Yeah, oh my god, I was catering for a little while, and I remember there was like one horrible job where like I had to carry lobster. The plates were so heavy and I'm like so weak. And I like dropped the lobster on someone's plate. It was so bad. And I just kind of like used my like finger and like tried to like shove it back on the person's plate, and I was like, I'm done with this. I was like, I can't do this anymore. And so luckily music worked out pretty soon after that. That was definitely a turning point.
And when you moved back to like Philly right after you graduated?
Yeah, I did. I lived at home for 2 years because I just like I don't know. I was just like focused on music and I didn't want to like live in New York and have to like scrounge my way through the city and like struggle to pay rent. So I just moved home, which had its pros and cons.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then I was excited to get back there and finally like have the money to live not at home in my parents' house.
After Whisky, do you feel like you had pressure to like replicate the same sound, and were people like telling you what kind of sounds to do?
Yeah, I think for a while we wrote ourselves into a box. I think we were really fortunate that we stumbled on a sound that people responded to, but I think with that definitely comes the pressure of trying to write something either just as good or something that sounds similar but isn't identical, so there's a progression of sound, but it can be really challenging. And it definitely took us a little while to kind of understand that it was okay to write something that was a little bit different and that, wasn't exactly the same as Whisky.
And were you also doing a lot of top lining stuff, like pop top lining?
Yeah, I was. I actually, we're in LA. I had plans to move here right when I graduated and do top lining. And just kind of work on pop tracks and be in like the LA songwriter scene. But then Marian Hill started taking off and I moved to New York.
Yeah. Why is Great Gatsby such a big inspiration?
Oh my god, that's a really good question. I think I read the book in high school and I was just immediately drawn to it. It's one of my favorite, it's an American classic, so clearly I'm not alone in my love for it, but I just was immediately captivated by the story. I love stories of old New York, and I love the Jazz Age and the 20s and Art Deco. I love the fashion, and I actually love the movie as well, the most recent Great Gatsby remake. And there, I don't know, I think because I also always gravitate towards old jazz singers, and there's like a timelessness and like a glamour that I just really loved. And yeah, I don't know, it's still one of my favorite stories.
How do you think
it.
How do you think your music has changed since the early songs you made?
That's also a good question. I think there's a little bit more of ourselves in the music. I think when we were writing things very early on, we sort of wrote from the perspective of like a femme fatale character, which was really cool and is always fun to play on stage, but I think with it came a lot of expectations, and so now I think we're okay with vulnerability, and we're okay with just being more of ourselves and not worried about writing ourselves into this very specific voice and this character and this box. I mean, it's still very much that in a lot of ways, but there are definitely songs that are inspired by our lives and our friends' experiences, and so yeah, just a little bit more vulnerability, a little bit more of ourselves.
How do you think you've grown as a person since when you started?
I think I've gotten a little bit more confident. I think, at the beginning, Marian Hill, they were very big shoes to fill as an artist and as a performer, and I wasn't quite ready for it, and I think just the more we've performed and the more that we've done it, the more confident I've become. Still some ways to go, for sure.
What would you say have been your biggest challenges?
Biggest challenges, I would say not getting distracted by what everyone else is doing. And I would say one of kind of what I was talking about earlier is just learning to be okay with the character and just becoming more confident and comfortable on stage. But a big one for me is just to keep your head down and stay focused. And not worry about everyone else, and just be confident in yourself. And it's always a process. You know, it's a journey to get there, but I feel good. I feel good about it.
What does love mean to you?
Oh my God. What is love? What is love? Love is passion. Love is acceptance. And that's a really good question.
You're like something to think.
It's what makes the world go round.
Yeah. Last question. What do you want to be remembered for?
Oh my God, you're hitting me with the deep questions at the end of this walk.
Yeah.
I want to be remembered for being a nice person, for putting out great art, and hopefully for taking risks, for not being afraid.
Yeah, this is perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.